Go ahead.
Hello, Zach. We're going into our official week one. I don't care about last week, calling that week one. This is really week one when the NFL starts.
Yeah.
My name is Hollis Barnhart. I'm sitting here with Zach, and I'm basically the handicapping spokesman for Wayne Root. If you like the plays of Harvard and Wayne Root, we've combined this year to get these plays out. And let's take a look at the first game, Zach. What a great game in the Saturday NCAA. Oklahoma, number 7 against number 2, Ohio State. We're showing Ohio State minus 7.5, and I think this is going to be a true revenge game. Ohio State went into Oklahoma last year and beat them 45-24 in Oklahoma. And what have they done since then? Well, their first game of the year last week, Mr. Heisman, Baker Mayfield. My gosh, 19 of 20. 329 yards, Zach, with 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I'm telling you right now, I think he just said, let me take over the loss of Joe Mixon and their great running back that I believe is with Cincinnati. Oklahoma comes in with a great secondary. They return 18 of 21 players. And let me tell you something, they've had a bullseye circled on their calendar for this game for a whole year. I'm going to be taking Oklahoma plus the 7.5. And on the other side, Urban Meyer, he lost a lot of players, but you know what? He reloaded. He found a freshman running back. This might be a future Hall of Famer, so let's make sure that you pay attention to J.K. Dobbins, 181 yards last week. I guess Urban wants to let them run and complement what J.T. Barrett. In fact, Barrett, is this guy ever going to graduate? Or it seems like he's been in this Ohio State secondary for 4 or 5, 6 years, But he's also another Heisman candidate. But let me tell you something. Last week, Ohio State's defense gave up 410 passing yards to Indiana. I think Baker Mayfield is just going to have a field day with that secondary. And also, I think Oklahoma's secondary, which is fantastic, will give JT a lot of problems. So they're probably going to be going mostly to the running game. But I think there's no way in the world Ohio State can lay the 7.5. So let's take Oklahoma plus the points.
All right, and I like what you said here with Oklahoma. And one thing being in Vegas the last 3 or 4 years that I quickly discovered, there's a big differential in handicapping pro and college sports. And what I mean by that is, in pro sports, when you get a repeat matchup, people want to lean the opposite way. That's not what you're supposed to do in pro sports. The NBA and the NFL, you're supposed to lean with that same team that had the edge the first time. As odds makers move that line up slightly to make you think. Now, in college sports, it's the opposite. You're going to think the team's going to come out with a better game plan, this, that, and that, and take advantage of what they did the last time, and it doesn't work that way. You look at last year's game, Ohio State was 3.5-point favorite in Oklahoma, and they blew them out. You got a big difference here, obviously. Samaje Perriman's not with Oklahoma anymore. Joe Mixon's not with Oklahoma anymore. And we saw last year Baker Mayfield struggle when Bob Stoops tried to have that game plan of just running and gunning. Ohio State has too much speed, so Oklahoma has to adjust this year on the road. And I think you saw the rust week 1 with Ohio State. They stormed back and covered. That's a key right there. That's going to be in people's mind. Not only did they come back from a sloppy performance, but they covered to blow out Indiana. So I think Oklahoma, they obviously don't have the same pieces as last year, but that doesn't mean this 10.5-point swing is justified. So I like the points here. Maybe not the outright upset. Ohio State likes to finish out games and win slop in slop fashion, but Oklahoma would be the play here for me, and might even be a release. I know I usually don't release these plays that we talk about, but might even be a release on this one.
Well, I agree with you, and remember, big key factor is that Ohio State lost a lot of their players that made that trip to Norman, Oklahoma last year. So we'll see if what's going to happen with that, but I like when you and I both agree on that Oklahoma. So for Wayne Root, myself, and Zach, we're all on Oklahoma there.
One more take there. If you remember, Oklahoma gave up two very unordinary touchdowns right before the half last year that really sucked the wind out of that game, made it higher than it should have been. It was actually a game for the first quarter and a half until the blowout occurred, but everyone remembers that 30, 40-yard touchdown in the back of the end zone. I think it was to Curtis Samuel right before halftime. Shouldn't have happened, and that was a big difference then.
And, Ohio State, they're not immune from losing early in the season. We've seen some cupcake go in there the first game or two, and this is no cupcake, so this is the real deal. So anyway, let's move over to a very interesting game in the NFL, Zach. Wayne Root and I have been talking about this game all week. I know his favorite team is Dallas Cowboys, and it looks like we're going to be taking the New York Giants plus the points here. And you know what you just said about going in with the pros and looking at the team that has performed the same way over and over and over. The New York Giants 5-0 against the spread against the Dallas Cowboys, 6-2 against the spread at Dallas. It seems like they always win. Last year, Giants beat Dallas twice, 20-19 in Week 1. They also won in New York late in the year, 10-7. And it seems like they dominated Dak Prescott. I don't think they'll have any problems again. Dallas, they've got, I want to use this word, it's called mindset. I don't think that Dallas has the proper mindset going into this game one. I think they've had a lot of distractions. Obviously, the biggest one is Ezekiel Elliott, who's going to play. But then Jerry Jones is out there. He's disrupting things. He doesn't give a lot of confidence to Jason Garrett going in. He puts a lot of pressure on him because he didn't even know who's going to play. Both defensive ends, Randy Gregory and David Irving, are out for Dallas, and that's going to be a huge thing. Their preparation time has been disrupted. It just seems like the mindset of this Dallas Cowboy team could be. And, another thing, they lost game one last year and then ran off 13-2 or something like that. So I think that the bottom line is New York is familiar with how to win and beat Dallas. And on the opposite, Dallas is familiar on how to lose and still hasn't figured out how to beat the New York Giants. So take the points, game one, on the road for the New York Giants.
Yeah, and we're talking about a spread here that's not settled, obviously, with the Ezekiel Elliott news yesterday. We're talking on Wednesday here, Hollis, so we're talking a 4-point spread. It might go higher, obviously, with Ezekiel Elliott being declared eligible for this game. But you got things fresh on people's minds. This matchup's usually a week 1, week 2, maybe week 3 matchup, and there's usually a tight game no matter what. We're talking about the Tony Romo days a couple years ago. We're talking about the Tom Coughlin botch play calls that cost them that one NBC opener. So this is a game that people love to watch, and there's familiarity. Everybody remembers a point spread that's close, so people have that in their minds. Obviously, the Giants are loaded. Their defense played really well last year with Landon Collins making a lot of pick sixes, returning some to the house. So that hasn't changed. What's the big difference here is Ezekiel Elliott's suspension. They're going to have to shift to Dak Prescott as the main guy. And usually you don't expect a quarterback to be able to make that shift that quickly. He was a rookie last year. He was thrown into the fire when Tony Romo went down in preseason, and he handled it. And it was in a different type of role, obviously, with Ezekiel having a breakout year. But he's been that quiet leader this offseason, and I think he's ready to do this in his second year. I liked what he did with Cole Beasley last year, and he really didn't utilize Des Bryant in the way that the Cowboys offense should have. So you get those deep balls going again, spread it out. And let's not forget, Dallas Cowboys have probably the best platoon of running backs in the NFL. Throw Ezekiel Elliott out of the picture. You put Alfie Morrison, you put Darren McFadden in there with that big offensive line. It's the same keys to recipe to get things going. And they frustrate Odell Beckham Jr., Eli Manning, get that turnover edge, and you're looking at a small line. I'll side with the Cowboys here.
Well, it's maybe you and I should be making a bet on this game. But anyway, if you want games like this, and if you want some other games from Zach or from myself, with Wayne Root, I don't know if you can see this or not, but be sure you write this down and keep it. Go to JB Plays number 6, or JB Plays LV number 6 at gmail.com. And just shoot me an email, and we'll get you set up with the games for this weekend. Zach, how can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, probably the best place to find me. But to get picks, notjustagame.com, or shoot me a text via Superphone app, 702-505-4530.
Okay, that's it for week number 1 of the NFL, and we'll see you next week.